Welcome to Betting Weekly Extra Time, European edition. You're with Dan Roebuck alongside me, Steve Wyss and James Eastham. Welcome in, boys. Steve, bit of a challenging week for us collectively last week as we changed our staking plan, but didn't all go to plan for us.
Well, thank God for Rayo Vallecano corners. That's all I will say.
Hey, cash it.
Listen, what can you do? I mean, the theory I had with the German game was kind of half right, wasn't it? One team didn't turn up. But unfortunately, they were that bad that they lost 4-0. And Bologna, I don't even want to talk about them again. I'm never ever backing them again after that performance. They made Jamie Vardy look like prime Jamie Vardy, and he's 38 now. Enough said about that. We've got to crack on and move on to the next round.
We have indeed. James, you're going to you tweak your strategy you were explaining to me.
Yeah, I'm obviously down at the moment on the points total that we put up on the screen every week, having been in profit pretty much the whole of last season. So, yeah, there is a change of strategy from me. We loosened our staking plan last week. Anybody that watched the show will have seen we're no longer doing 1 unit, 2 unit and hot dog. So I've got free reign. And at the moment, my strategy to try to get back to level par is to keep it fairly basic, keep it fairly low. I'm sticking to 1 unit plays at the moment as I try to work back to level par. Be very interested in the comments to hear what people think of that. Everybody on in the audience will know what it's like when you're down. So if you've got your own strategies, do share them about getting back to level and then moving into profit. But for the time being, yes, I'll be keeping my stakes fairly low as I work my way back up.
Listen, you have got plenty of credit in the bank after some brilliant seasons for because we win team. Plenty to discuss. Really interesting weekend coming your way. We've got some smart plays from the boys coming your way. And if you like what you hear, please subscribe to the newsletter, bettingweeklystudios.com. A lot of good stats, a lot of good picks as well. Get your comments in when it comes to the action this weekend via YouTube. Always great to see what you boys are picking for the weekend action, and girls for that matter. Subscribe and like to the channel. We're just going to kick off with some La Liga chat. Barcelona, Real Madrid, Atletico Madrid, Athletic Club all played midweek, and it was a rearranged fixture because those teams were involved in the Spanish Super Cup, which takes place in Saudi in early 2026. So they've had to move some fixtures forward, as they did last year. And Steve, we've been talking on the Premier League show recently about the scheduling for the Premier League teams, and there was so much rotation in midweek. It threw up some interesting results. Some teams were on the wrong end of them, some on the right, obviously. Doesn't happen so much in European football. There isn't 2 cup competitions in the vast majority of leagues in Europe. I know that France has dropped their League Cup, about 4 or 5 years ago, James, something like that, wasn't it? Yeah. So it is very different. But obviously, with the likes of the big hitters, Barcelona, Real Madrid, and those are the 2 that I mentioned playing in midweek, I just wondered whether it might be worth fading them. And Steve, first of all, I want to talk about Barcelona because they take on Betis, and just a quirk of the fixture list, it's exactly the same team that they played in exactly the same slot and exactly the same situation last year, and they drew 2-2. They are minus 148 to win away in Andalusia. Betis are plus 310 here. What are your thoughts on just sort of the squad rotation, these Spanish teams, the big Spanish teams in action, and whether Barca, without Dani Olmo, who was probably man of the match in their win over Atleti in midweek, are they worth fading?
I think you're trying to tease us into a pick on Real Betis here, Dan.
I am.
It wasn't part of the schedule, but
in.
Maybe we might need to put some official units on the table at this rate. But look, I go back to the Premier League show, which came out yesterday, and the boys are absolutely right. Might be the time of year where you've got to wait for the lineups if you're certainly more on the cautious side of betting. Maybe if you're having especially a big bet, perhaps. But because we don't know what the lineups are going to be. What I will say is I had a good look at Real Betis last week in the match against Sevilla, and they were a lot better than Sevilla. They are by far the best team in that city now. I think they're probably the 5th best team in the country. Would you agree with that? I think Villarreal and them are maybe on the same level. They're very well coached. Look, they've got a former Premier League winning manager as their head coach. And I would not be backing Barcelona at minus 143 here. It doesn't mean they're not going to win. They've got they can outscore anyone on the day. I would be with the goal line 3.5, but I've got a feeling it goes over. I said that midweek on the live show with Atletico Madrid.
Yeah.
I wanted to take the goals, but it was just the line's just too high. That Desmond 2-2 might come in again. I think I'm with you. I think I would fade them if I had to here at Barcelona, but ultimately I've not got the balls to do it.
I think it's going to be a really interesting game. It is 12:30 Saturday. Athletic Club take on Atleti, so they sort of cancel each other out to a certain extent because they both played in midweek. James, I know that you played Real Madrid on the Asian line a few times this season, sometimes successfully, sometimes not. They drew 3 on the spin, and then, of course, they won last weekend. They take on Celta Vigo. They're very, very short at -345. They didn't slip up last season in this particular slot, and you tend to think, although they've had injury issues all year, maybe certainly offensively they've got enough to sort of overcome a Celta Vigo side that I think were taken to penalties, weren't they, in the Copa del Rey by a lower league team last night?
Yeah, I understand the price of -345 here on Real Madrid. I know Rui Barlow, our Spanish expert, who's on the live show a lot, was really impressed with the 3-0 win against Athletic Club. He felt it was maybe one of their best performances of the season. I've liked Real Madrid on the handicap, as you say, Dan, many times this season. I've kind of backed them sometimes on the wrong weeks because they have had some big wins, and I've sometimes been on them when they've maybe only won by 1 goal or dropped points. But yeah, I think the -345 on Real Madrid is fair. I'm almost more inclined at the moment to try to find a way to back Mbappe than Real Madrid because not saying they're a one-man team, they're not, but he is in extraordinary form. You know, another fantastic goal in midweek and playing very well. Already people in the game are flagging him up as a potential Ballon d'Or winner. It's a stupid thing to say really this early in the sense that, you know, we've got a World Cup next summer, which will almost certainly dictate who wins it, but he's in that type of form. So have a look at him in the goal-scoring markets, in the shot-on-target markets, because the two go together now, don't they? If Real Madrid win, it almost invariably means Mbappe's had a good game, so you can kind of check those prices at the same time. Just very quickly on Barcelona, I agree with Steve. I wouldn't back them at minus money here against the Betis side, who have lost only 2 out of 14 in La Liga. Very difficult side to beat, so Barcelona, for me, are too short to get the points.
Yeah, as people probably have gotten onto. I've talked myself into fading Barcelona for sure this weekend. The other games I'm not so sure about just yet. I mean, we will see squad rotation. I'm sure it's worth pointing out that, of course, all 4 playing the Champions League next midweek. It's Real Madrid against Manchester City. Let's not forget. It's Athletic Club against Paris Saint-Germain. Barca have got Eintracht Frankfurt at home, and Atleti are away at PSV. So there's levels to the opposition that are coming up next midweek. But watch out for the teams. Wind back to Thursday's live show. Right at the top of that, myself and Will White again talked about squad rotation. And Will basically spends all his life looking at the markets and lineups, and he knows stuff that I would never even know, and he's basically suggesting at the minute, unless you're privy to lineups, wait. Some lineups get leaked. We know that if you see a market movement, as you've seen in the Premier League, you look at the Chelsea drift at Leeds, and that's simply because of somebody knew that Chelsea were going to swap out an awful lot of their players, and they got beat off Leeds. I bet Leeds one of my sole winning bets in a challenging midweek for myself. So watch out for the lineups that will be out, of course, ahead of those 3 games. Real Madrid play on Sunday, the other 2 on Saturday. Big game in Italy. We've got a lean here. And some thoughts as well from the boys when it comes to Napoli against Juventus. This is 2:45 on Sunday Eastern, so it's the key game in Italy. Napoli are plus 138 here, Juventus plus 220. And the interesting thing here, Steve, is that Luciano Spalletti is back at the Maradona for the first time as an opposition coach since leading Napoli to that historic title winning 22-23. He had 2 years as a Napoli coach. Then he sort of flunked out as the Azzurri coach when he did really badly. But as you pointed out to me last night as we were texting each other, he's got a massive Napoli tattoo on his arm. I'm not quite sure how that's gone down. He's done well since taking over at Juve. He's unbeaten in 7 games. They've not played much, but this is an interesting one, isn't it, for him going back to the Maradona in southern Italy?
I hope they give him a decent reception, but this is Italy, and this is Naples, isn't it? So I'm not sure he necessarily will. But I would tell you what, I was really close to having an official unit on the game, or half unit, because I think the goal line's too low. Over 2 Asian goals is available at minus 129. And I've just got the feeling that the team news is low, as low the goal line when perhaps it shouldn't have. So James is going to talk about Vlahovic soon. He's ruled out the game. We know De Bruyne is still an injury for Napoli. Yeah. Lukaku's not been fit. So I just think based on that team news is why the goal line's low. Maybe past head-to-heads, maybe with it being a big Italian game. But really, what we've seen from both teams suggests goals for me. Napoli, the way they play, has been pretty open this season. They've missed quite a lot of chances as well. Juventus under Spalletti have been really entertaining. I think there's money to be made on Juventus. It's frustrating. You've got to get them on the right week, and you've got to know which market to bet them in. But I think generally, I think if you back Juventus blind on the main handicap and the main goal line over in the next 10 games, I think you'll make a profit. So I'm looking at Asian 2 here over goals -129. Really close to putting some official units on the table. But I think it'll be an entertaining game. I just think the way that both teams, Juventus especially, they've actually still got tons and tons of attacking talent even without Vlahovic.
Yeah. Over 2 is a lean from Steve. James, your thoughts on this one? I mean, Juve have been good under Spalletti. They've not really played that. I don't think they've played a top half side so far since he took over from Igor Tudor. Napoli have done well recently, as we know. They have beaten Roma and Atalanta, amongst others. They're both, of course, in action in the Champions League next midweek as well. Napoli are away at Benfica. Juve are at home to Paphos, so easier assignment certainly for the Turin side. But what are your thoughts on this one, Napoli-Juve?
Well, the Vlahovic injury is interesting. We think he's out for 3 months because at the start of the season, we would have said that probably wasn't a big deal for Juventus, who had gone into the market and brought in Jonathan David and Lois Openda. You could have argued at one stage just before 25-26 kicked off, Vlahovic was maybe third choice in a lot of people's thoughts, but it's not turned out that way. He has been the best of the 3. But I tend to agree with Steve. I think there's been maybe an overreaction to that and 1 or 2 other injuries because David and Openda have got a great opportunity now to show what they can do, which is not really what they've done so far. I think they've had a combined 800 minutes or something like that in Serie A. Jonathan David's on 1 goal and Openda's yet to score. So between them, it's 1 goal in 9 full matches at the moment. They've not always played as the number 9, so it's slightly unfair to just label it a poor finishing. They've sometimes played out wide or a bit deeper, but they've got a chance now to show what they can do over a number of weeks. So I think they'll still be dangerous up front. Whoever starts, maybe they'll play both. Maybe they'll start with one and bring the other on. Jonathan David's plus 225 to score, and Lois Openda is plus 310. Maybe worth a look, given that we think one or both will start. Been a bit of talk about whether Yildiz, who has been in sensational form for Juventus, might play as a false 9, so we don't know. But it makes it interesting, not just for this weekend, but going forward for Juventus. Let's see how they cope without Vlahovic, because in theory, for me, they do still have enough quality in that final third to continue to pick up points.
Yeah, it's going to be a really interesting game. That is 2:45 on Sunday Eastern time. That is Napoli, who are favourites. Tend to think Napoli might win, but I do like the goals angle for sure. Napoli plus 300 for this Scudetto, incidentally. Juve, after a poor start, as we know, they're 22-1. But it is fairly tight at the top when it comes to Serie A, and we will be talking about that a little bit later on in the show. Let's get some official plays from the boys then, shall we? We're going to start with a pick from James. It's Toulouse-Strasbourg, the game that we're looking at. This is 1 p.m. on Saturday Eastern. Toulouse are plus 140. Strasbourg are plus 180 here. The draw plus 245. Strasbourg put up that really good performance against Crystal Palace and then looked like they were going to get over the line at the weekend, but having started promisingly, things didn't quite go to plan, something that very much irked Strasbourg supporters and Liam Rossigna, James.
Yeah, Liam Rossigna, the Strasbourg manager, who I think generally is doing an excellent job at that club, was very angry after Strasbourg dropped points last weekend. They were in complete control in that home game against Brest. They led 1-0 at half-time, looked almost certain to pick up the points, then basically stopped playing after half-time, made some mistakes, and they ended up losing the game 2-1. There was a very clear change of tone from Rossigna after that game. He criticised his players. He said he didn't want to hide behind the fact that he's got a young side anymore. And I think that will have a big impact on the match because there were signs of sloppiness creeping into their play. They were maybe not picking their games, but eased off on the back of that big win over Crystal Palace, where they've been excellent. Maybe didn't focus as much on the Brest game as they should. So I'm expecting a really big performance here from Strasbourg, and I'm surprised that they're underdogs here. Toulouse 140, plus 140 to win it. Strasbourg plus 180. So I wouldn't back Strasbourg on the money line, but I am backing them with a 1 unit on the Asian handicap. Strasbourg plus 0.25 on the Asian handicap is available at minus 132. So with that play, you will make a profit as long as Strasbourg avoid defeat. I think they're the better side anyway. I think they will finish above Toulouse in the final table this season. And I feel this is a great time to be with them, because the players will go out onto the pitch with Rosenior's words ringing in their ears, I think. He's made it very clear to them that they need to play to their potential. They can't pick and choose their games or switch off during matches. They have to be at it all the time if they want to be a top side. And their ambition this season is to finish in the top 4. So got no concerns at all about Strasbourg this weekend in terms of attitude. Emmanuel Omega, one of their 2 strikers they've got, is suspended. It's an internal suspension for 1 or 2 things he said in the media. Again, not necessarily a bad thing. He's a good player. They'll miss him, but I think that will reinforce to the rest of the players that they've got to take this game seriously. And they've got a second excellent striker anyway in Pani Kelly, who's been scoring a lot of goals for them. So very confident on Strasbourg. And just very quickly on Toulouse, they've done okay this season, but no better than that. They've actually only won 1 of their last 6 at home, and that was against Metz, who are one of the weaker sides in the division, and Metz actually had a player sent off that day. So Toulouse's home form is a concern. I'd be surprised if they won it anyway, even if Strasbourg didn't have what I think will be an excellent attitude this weekend. But I think there's enough factors in Strasbourg's favour for them to maybe be a play for people on the money line at plus 180. Not for me. I'm being a bit more conservative, but I do think they're worth backing to avoid defeat. So it's Strasbourg for me, plus 0.25 on the Asian handicap with 1 unit.
Yeah, what I've always thought about Toulouse over the last sort of 3 years, maybe 4 years, is that they've been XG kings, but they don't necessarily perform to those numbers. But occasionally they do, and it means if you've got the draw on side, it's just a nice little thing to have in your back pocket. You got a half win for the draw here for that Toulouse-Strasbourg game. Let's get to Nice-Angers, because we've got some significant amount of units coming in this one. We've got thoughts from Steve and James. We'll go James first up with this one again. Nice minus 120. This is Sunday 9 a.m. Eastern. Angers at a 3-1. Draw up plus 270 here. Anyone who's been across French football will know it's been something of a wild week at Nice. Fans haven't been happy, but there has been accusations from players that may not be true. There's a big story here. We've got some significant units going on as well. But James, just set the picture. Just tell people what's been going on if they don't know.
Yeah, it's almost been the only story in French football this week at Nice. It's a massive story. So for people who've not followed it, it really starts last Sunday when the team flew back to Nice after losing 3-1 at Lorient. They were met by a couple of hundred or so Nice fans who weren't angry, who weren't happy. They were very angry with the players about their performance level. They were there close to midnight as the players got back to pick up their cars and go home. After that, we don't exactly know what happened because there are mixed reports. Some of the players have alleged that they were physically and verbally abused by the fans, which the fans deny. A couple of players have put in complaints to the police about their treatment, and they've missed some training this week because of what went on. As I say, mixed reports. There was a journalist who was there who said he didn't see any violence. Doesn't mean there wasn't any, but he didn't see any. So we don't quite know what's happened, but what we do know is it's caused an enormous rift between the fans and the players. It's also affected the management at the club. The Nice manager, Franck S., was expected to resign after these incidents on Wednesday morning. Had a last-minute change of heart, and he's staying now. We don't know how well that will have gone down with the players. We know 1 or 2 players had already kind of had their issues with Franck S. this season anyway. And it took until Thursday for us to hear anything publicly from the Nice president or the owners, Ineos. And I think that's not gotten down very well with the manager, who felt he wasn't really backed publicly as much as he would have liked. So to summarise all of that, we've had a week at Nice where none of the focus has been on this weekend's match. I think they haven't trained as much as you would have liked them to. We don't really know what the mood is within the squad, whether the players are all united after what happened last week. And it doesn't feel as though the manager and his bosses are on the same page either. So a really messy situation. Nice are playing at home this weekend. A lot of the fan groups have said they're going to boycott the match because they don't like the accusations that have been made against them. What chance do Nice have of winning the game in these circumstances is the question you need to ask, and that Steve and I have been asking all week. I personally don't think they've got very much chance at all because they are not really, for me, in the right frame of mind to go out there at home and collect all 3 points. It's one of those games which might have been better if it was away from home. Now, the other factor is the price, and I think, if Nice were a big price, you might think, okay, well, I'll just leave the game alone. But they're minus money here to win the match. They're minus 120, which I think is way too short for a club who've had as many problems and issues which are not related to the game as they've had this week. So my 1 unit play on the game is on Angers, plus 0.75 on the Asian handicap. It's available at minus 136. You lose only half your stakes there, even if Angers lost the game by a single goal, and you'll make a profit if Angers avoid defeat. And just moving away from Nice for a second, Angers played some pretty good football recently. They've been difficult to beat. They've looked very coherent in what they've been trying to do away from home. They beat Toulouse 1-0. Away from home recently. They've also drawn 2-2 away from Marseille. They've played some brave football, and they've got, as far as we know, pretty much a full squad here. So I think they're the perfect side to take advantage of this. They're very low key. They won't get involved in what's going on at Nice at all. They'll just turn up and play their normal game. And as I say, I think it's going to be very difficult for Nice to be as focused and committed and together and united as you need to be to win, a professional football match at the top level. So, yeah, surprised at the Nice price. It's not moved all week. There's been no market reaction yet to what's been going on there. And I think that means that at the moment, while Nice are minus money, it's a good chance to oppose them.
We're opposing Nice, Steve. Now, you've got some units to push on this game as well. Are you're tailing James here? What's the story?
Yeah, I mean, this is just such an opportunity to take advantage, I think, of a really poor Nice side. My first bet on the game is I'm going 1.5 units here on the same bet as James, plus 0.75 Asian handicap at minus 136. I'm really confident about this one. Every single Europa League match day in the last 2 years, I can guarantee you someone will message me and saying, what is going on at Nice? Right? Like their performances in the Europa League has been so bad. And it seems to have spread to their league form recently. There's a couple of really alarming, three really alarming results. They lost at Metz, and for me, Metz are the worst team in the league. They lost 5-1 at home to Marseille. Now, that is a local derby, which Nice normally raise the level for, and they lose 5-1 at home. And then they lose to Lorient last week, 3-1. It's a Lorient side that hasn't beaten anyone that has had 11 players on the pitch all season until then. So clearly on the field, the results are not good. Performances are not good. And then off the field, this absolute mess. Who knows what happened on the bus? Who knows? But it's quite clear. I don't think the manager wants to be there. I don't honestly think at least half a dozen players want to be there. And the lineup could be anything this weekend. The fans are not on their side. Angers, I think, I owe them a bit of an apology. I thought they were really bad in the early part of the season. But I think they've proved themselves to be a decent side. So I think they come here and get a result, at least get a draw. And do you know what? I'm going to add half a unit here on the draw no bet for Angers at plus 175. I think that's a massive price, and I would regret it. If we were going back to the old rules, I honestly might have had 2 units on the Angers handicap and 1 unit on the hot dog. That is how sort of confident I am that this. Sometimes you've got to take an opportunity in betting, and I think this is the one. Got a good record. Do you remember, James, on the first year we did the French show, I had a bet on this game, and it was simply Angers to score. I think it rather shocked Rob Daly in the pick.
Yes.
They won 1-0. It was something like minus 140 just to score a goal. It was one of my favourite ever picks.
That does ring a bell, yeah.
Yeah, so 1.5 units plus 0.75 Asian handicap, minus 136, and half a unit as well on the draw no bet for Angers, because I think they come here and win. And do you know what? It wouldn't surprise me if they even won by more than 1 goal.
A lot of units on Angers. We've got a draw no bet half unit from Steve. We've got 2.5 units on the plus 0.75 Asian line at minus 136. We're all in. Angers, Nice have got their troubles on and off the pitch. That game, a reminder, Sunday, 9 a.m. Eastern, one to tune into wherever you can watch your French football, which I know is difficult these days, but I'm sure somewhere you'll be able to watch it. We're going to be all in on that one. Let's get another official pick from Steve, shall we? Here we go to Spain. This is again Sunday, 10:15 a.m. Valencia against Sevilla. Valencia plus 108 here. Sevilla plus 250. Both came through second round Copa del Rey away assignments by 2-1 to make progress to the next round. Fell to the handicap. Shout out to Will White, incidentally, on the Thursday live show. He suggested that the lower, the regional teams in Spain have done well, and they covered the handicap in 5 from 5 against top flight teams on Thursday. Really good selections. We are moving away from Asian lines, and I thought surely if it's Sevilla, it's overs, but it's not, Steve, for your official play here.
Yeah, I mean, I've had such a great week on the corners that I've had a few people message me and say, you have to have a corner play, official play on the extra time show every week now. So, now I've got more leeway. I can kind of do that. I'm taking over 9.5 corners here at -122. This is too low a corner line. I've mentioned all season about how Sevilla matches have gone over goals a lot, but they've actually had a lot of over corner matches as well. And it's the style they play. Probably more defensively actually than offensively, but it's just when you're betting on corner games, quite a lot of my corner bets are based on feel and sort of how I'm reading the game, and it's hard to explain it sometimes. The stats do back me up here. If you look at both teams' averages for the season, this bet would cash. But in general, I just feel like it's going to be, in basic terms, quite an end-to-end, a balanced game, end-to-end, where both teams will have attacking moments, so they can both contribute. The way that Valencia defend, I've seen them defend, if in doubt, knock it out, behind for a corner, no problem. And Sevilla a little bit the same in that respect. And both sides, Valencia especially, miss chances. They have a lot of shots, they have a lot of attacking moments, but miss chances. We know Sevilla have been very clinical, but they've also been getting a lot of corners. So Rayo Vallecano are normally my go-to team for corners in Spain. I quite like their corner over as well this week against Espanyol. But Sevilla and Valencia are also my go-to teams. So look, when you're offering up for a 9.5 corner line over with Bet Rivers here, -122, I've got to take it. Personally, I probably have a nibble of over 10.5, 11.5 as well. But for the sake of this show, official 1-unit play again on the corners. So Valencia Sevilla over 9.5 corners at -122.
9.5 is the line for the corners play from Steve this week in La Liga. Let's go back to Serie A. James has got a lean for us in the Roma game. They travelled to Cagliari 9 a.m. Sunday for this one. Roma, look, I've bet them for top 4. Roma fans have given Gasperini a little bit of criticism about not being the same sort of attacking coach that he was at Atalanta, but by and large they've been impressive. I know there's been a few hiccups recently, but I'm still very much on the Roma train. James, are you here away at Cagliari that have done us dirty over the last few years?
Yeah, they have. Yes, I am on Roma here, Dan. It's a lean from me. There's a couple of really good stats-based leans in Serie A this weekend for people who like to do their plays, maybe on teams they don't watch, but where the stats can be strong, and this is one of those. Roma -0.75 on the Asian handicap is my lean, available at -113 away to Cagliari. I think the fans have got a point about Roma. They've not been the most exciting or entertaining team to watch in some of their matches. I think that is fair. They're certainly not prolific in front of goal, but they've looked pretty good. They've looked well organised. They did have a setback last week when they lost to Napoli at home. They've looked a better side to me so far away from home. It seems to work better for them at the moment. Maybe a little bit like Napoli did much of last season. Similar sort of feel for Roma when they play away from home. They seem to know what they're doing a bit better, and they look a little bit more sure of themselves. So that's partly why I'm going on Roma here. They have been excellent away from home. They've won 5 out of 6. And the only defeat they had was against the Milan side, who increasingly look like title contenders. So Roma, against everybody else, have been excellent on the road, and they've kept clean sheets in most of those away wins as well. So their form's very good. Cagliari, I think maybe historically people still think of them as being a difficult side to beat at home. That's not been the case this season. They've actually lost 3 out of their 6 home games so far. And the only times they've faced decent opposition, which was Bologna and Inter, at home. They lost both of those games 2-0. So there's no evidence for me that Cagliari have got enough here to stop Roma winning the game. Roma are short to win the game, but you can back them here, Asian handicap minus 0.75 at minus 113, and you will make a profit as long as Roma win the game. So it's just a lean from me, but as I say, the stats here on both sides are pretty strong.
Yeah, I will be betting this. Talk about Gasperini and the fact that Roma haven't really played the attacking way that Atalanta did last season. But in terms of those away numbers, Atalanta had the best record on their travels in Serie A last term. They won 13 games, more than any other team. So they've certainly morphed that from Gasperini's time at Atalanta to Roma this season. Let's get to the Bundesliga. Nico asked where the leans were last week from Steve. So Steve is obliged this week, and how, because it's not just leans here, but we have got a little bit of a parlay for games on Saturday and Sunday. Stuttgart Bayern 9:30 Saturday. Leipzig Eintracht Frankfurt 12:30 on Saturday. Later kickoff in Germany, and then the Dortmund Hoffenheim game, which is a Sunday fixture, 11:30. So if you're following Stephen with this parlay, then you got to get your bets on ahead of that 9:30 kickoff Eastern on Saturday. Steve, talk us through the parlay. What are we going here? Money line, Asian line, overs, unders. What are we thinking?
Well, it's the three matches you mentioned there. Bayern Munich in action against Stuttgart, Dortmund against Hoffenheim, and we've got RB Leipzig against Frankfurt. And the parlay is a simple one, over 2.5 goals for all three games. You get plus 170 on that. Half a unit play, official. I'm actually personally going to play the over 3.5 goal parlay as well. That pays plus 725 with Bet Rivers. But I think it's good to get the over 2.5 line in play there for half a unit. I think that works pretty well.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because Stuttgart Bayern is a repeat of the German Super Cup final, and Bayern, after that sort of mauling at Arsenal, I'm not sort of 100% that they are the sort of Champions League sort of conquerors I thought that they might be here. But in terms of what they've done domestically, they got back on track, of course. But they all seem to concede. So when you're looking at sort of overs, you always guarantee that the opposition are going to score against them, Steve. I mean, it's an odd one, isn't it, with Bayern? Being, you compare with Arsenal, someone like that, or an Inter, and you think, well, surely they should be a bit better defensively, but they do give opposition chances.
They have been conceding goals recently, and I just wonder if the schedule is a part of that. I've said before with some of these teams, if you actually get at the defence, then they can be vulnerable, and I think Stuttgart will have a go at them. I don't think Bayern have gone under 2.5 goals in any match this season.
I don't think they have.
I don't think they have.
I'm looking at the results.
Which is incredible.
No, they haven't. They haven't.
So that's the most obvious over 2.5 of the lot of them. Dortmund, Hoffenheim, I really, really like the over there. That was nearly on my radar for like a single on its own. You'd have to be looking at probably the 3.25 goal line, though, 3.5, if you want something close to even money on a single. But Hoffenheim have been really good this season. I flagged them up, didn't I, right early on, how they were looking strong pre-season. That's continued. They're fifth in the table. We know their strength. It's scoring goals. Dortmund, I don't have a good record with Dortmund, do I? But they rested players against Leverkusen in the Cup midweek.
Yeah.
I think they come back strong here and get Gerassi's due a goal or two. I think it'd be a great watch, actually. Probably the most dangerous leg of the parlay is this RB Leipzig-Frankfurt one, because I don't really know what Frankfurt know what they are right now. I think they're in a bit of a transition phase where they want to be attacking, but we know their defence is too unreliable. To be honest, I think RB Leipzig beat them, maybe comfortably even. RB Leipzig could cover the goal line on their own if Frankfurt defend badly. And, we've said before how the Red Bulls are sneaking under the radar a little bit, perhaps. So, but again, it's only a 2.5 goal line. We don't need over 3.5 for this parlay. Plus 170 for all three of those matches to contain at least 3 goals or more is definitely worth an official half unit play. Call it a mini hot dog, if you want to call it that, Dan, for the show. I'd really like the goals in all three. If they all explode into something crazy, I'm not going to be surprised. But Bundesliga in general, I think, is quite tricky at the minute because we're in that transition season, like I said before, between the high scoring matches, and then we're going into the winter, and then the winter break comes, and there's cup matches as well with European games. It can be a tricky environment for Bundesliga.
Half unit over 2.5 goals on the Stuttgart Bayern, Leipzig Eintracht Frankfurt, and Dortmund Hoffenheim fixtures for Steve, spread over Saturday and Sunday. Let's get some Monday night thoughts here, because some really interesting games, and a couple in particular we're going to focus on. First of all, James, Udinese against Genoa, which is a midday kickoff Eastern on Monday. Udinese plus 145 to win the game here. You identified the new Genoa trend last weekend as a lean under De Rossi, moving away from Vieira, and it won. Are we going with overs again? And what is the line here? Because the line never changes. You know, these markets are efficient.
Yes, it's moved a little bit, and yes, we're basically doing the same lean as we did last week. So for those who didn't see the show, or just to reiterate it, I took the view that the style of play at Genoa has changed fairly dramatically since Patrick Vieira left as manager and Daniele De Rossi came in to replace him. The main change being in terms of the goal count going up. We know Vieira was quite defensive, and we know a lot of Genoa's games have gone unders. That has changed since De Rossi came in, and certainly last week the goal line hadn't really changed to reflect it. So our lean last weekend was on over 1.75 goals. Incredibly low, minus 130. They duly obliged. Genoa won the game 2-1. So I'm going in again here. Now, the line has moved a little bit. It's over 2 goals this weekend at pretty much the same price, minus 129. So it's effectively moved from over 1.75 last weekend to over 2 goals here. But I'd still be very happy to take over 2 Asian goals in the game at minus 129. You would get your stakes back. If the game had exactly 2 goals, you would make a profit. If the game had 3 or more goals. So far, in 4 games for Genoa since Vieira left, the average goals per game count is 4.25, and the average expected goals per game is 3.1. So on the top line metrics, it's pretty clear that we've got this change of style from Genoa. Anybody that watched the game or watched the highlights of the game against Verona last weekend would have seen that. You know, they were very attack-minded, and they were not particularly solid at the back. So I don't see really why that would change here. And in terms of Udinese, because we've obviously got two teams here, 6 out of 13 matches for them have gone over 3 goals, but quite a lot have had exactly 2 goals. I think 5 out of 13 have had exactly 2, where you would have got your stakes back. You would have only actually lost with an over 2 goals play in 2 out of 13 games for Udinese. So they're a fairly safe bet as well, statistically, with this pick. So it's just a lean from me, but I think the goal line will keep changing on Genoa. I think it will change on the back of this game, and we won't be able to get these prices anymore. So I would back it while you can. It's over 2 goals, and it's available at the moment at minus 129.
I just want to get both your thoughts as well quickly on the Serie A title situation, because Milan also play on Monday night. They are away at Torino. That's the later game at 3 p.m. Milan are a joint second favourite, Steve, at plus 300, along with Napoli for the Scudetto. Inter are the favourites here. No European football for Milan. We've talked about this before. And they were knocked out the Coppa Italia last night by Lazio. They have got a free run. I don't know if they're good enough. It's tight at the top, only a point separating the top 4. But boy, have they got a big chance to win the Scudetto, haven't they, you would have thought?
They have. I don't think they're the best team in Italy. I'm not even sure they're in the best 2 teams. But they've got a brilliant schedule, and we've got to look at all the factors here. I flagged it up right at the start of the season. Now they're out of the cup as well. I mean, there's no excuses whatsoever, is there? And I rate Inter, I rate Napoli, I rate Juve still. But I just think those sides are going to drop too many points throughout the season. They don't look like a machine that's going to win 10 straight or something. So it's there for AC Milan. It's going to be a really good title race. It could be quite a close one. By the way, Monday card looks great, doesn't it? A really good card overall. Don't know who's doing Monday live show, but that'll be
Lewis,
you on that.
I think
I'm
definitely
well worth watching on Monday's live show. And I've got a horrible feeling James might regret not putting some official units on Genoa over again.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for the second week on the spin.
He's read them well. I've got the feeling that would be the next cab off the rank for him. But in terms of this game, I think Milan do enough. Professional job. Maybe an under game, this one, because I think Torino it could be the sort of match that they try and bunker in a little bit,
100%.
try and get the draw. Maybe Milan
100%.
win 2-0 even. Could be worth looking at.
Yeah. Look, we when Torino play the big teams, I think that's what they do. And Milan did make a lot of changes for that game against Lazio. Just very quickly, James, your thoughts? I know you got a little thought on Torino Milan.
Yeah, well, I do. Well, I saw Will White on the live show that he did with Steve after the last round of Champions League games, which was a great watch. In that, he said that Inter were still by far, I think, I hope I'm not misquoting you, Will, but by far the best team in Italy, which I thought was a really interesting comment. I think Milan have got a great chance of winning the title this year. I think that the advantage of not playing in Europe or other competitions is almost bigger in these leagues where there's a title race, because we know there's not a great deal between the sides anyway. And this could be the decisive factor. It happened last season with Napoli. They won the title for me primarily because of that. You could argue Inter were the best team in Italy last season because they did get all the way to the Champions League final. But I think in the end, that fixture congestion cost them. So I really like Milan at the moment. I thought they were pretty solid last weekend against Lazio. They're just not looking like they're losing games. They are not necessarily the most flamboyant side in the way they play. They're slightly too reliant for me on one or two players to win them the game, but they're very solid and they're very well organised. And I just feel that this clear run they've got at Serie A against rivals for the title who don't have the biggest squads in the world, but may end up still being in Europe in March and April, maybe even May, it's going to be a big advantage. Just very quickly, we've seen it a little bit already in France because Lens over there have gone top of the table partly for me through having no European football. They're plus 1,600 to win the League One title. I would not advocate backing them because obviously you've got PSG and Marseille in that league. But as a general point, these sides who are not in Europe, I think they've got a great chance of certainly overperforming what they would do if they were in Europe.
Yeah, and these are the spots, really, when there's so much football that maybe you can side with them just game by game. One final lean before we wrap things up. It's in Spain on Monday from Steve. It's Osasuna Levante, 3 p.m. Eastern. Osasuna minus 130. Osasuna generally make sure of their top flight status because of their good home record. They were 6th in the home-only table last season. Not quite as good this season, but still outperforming their overall numbers. Steve, what have you got?
Yeah, strong lean this one. Nearly had some official units on this one, but Osasuna for me, money line, minus 130. The main reason I didn't make it an official play is I'm not quite sure how good or bad Osasuna are. We know they're good at home, though, historically, and they're the sort of team, they're just hovering above the relegation zone. Whenever they usually get in this position, they get a win out of nowhere to drag themselves clear. But this wouldn't be a win out of nowhere, though, because for me, Levante, the worst team in La Liga. I've said it before. I don't rate them one bit. I think their defense is awful. And Osasuna have not actually had the chance at home much to play poor teams. So this is their opportunity now to get back on track and get, I think it could be, well, I say convincing win. They're not the sort of team that win 3 or 4-0, are they ever? But I think they do enough. I just think Levante are so poor that we get a fairly clear home win here. So minus 130 on Osasuna. I say the danger is how good or bad are Osasuna? They're probably on the poor side, but definitely better than Levante.
Yeah, I think they are a very good home team generally. I know they've not been as good this season, but I like that bet, minus 130. Be interested to see if the market moves for them over the course of the weekend. That is a Monday night lean from Steve. To wrap things up, Steve, James, thanks for your company. Good luck to one and all. We'll keep everyone updated, of course, via our X feeds. That is a wrap for Betting Weekly Extra Time European Edition. Follow us at Because We Win. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Get your comments in. Who you betting this weekend across the top 4 leagues outside of the Premier League in Europe. We'll be back next week. Of course, lots of content on the channel to come and enjoy from all of us. For now, though, it is goodbye.